create a local repository, how to create a remote GitHub repository, how to push it, how to pull, make changes, etc. So let's get into it. All right, so first thing you want to do is get Git installed if you don't have it already, and you can check by opening your terminal and just saying git -- version. That'll show you the current version. If you don't have it, then like I said, there's a few ways you can install it. You can use Homebrew on Mac or your Linux package manager, or just go to git-scm.com/downloads and download it for Windows, Mac, or Linux. All right, so once you get it installed, we're gonna have to configure your name and email, and this is something you do just once the first time that you're using Git. So you just want to open up a terminal. It doesn't matter what folder you're in at the moment. I'll get into what this task tracker is in a minute, but we want to run two commands. So you're going to do git config and then -- global, and then you want user.name and then whatever you want to specify as your name. So I would say, Brad Traversy. Okay, I'm not going to run that because I already have it set. And you can check what's set by just taking the value away and just running this. So you'll see that's what I have as my name. All right, then you're going to want to do the same for email. So that would be user.email, and then you would put in, whatever email that you're using. Okay, so that's how you can configure that. Now, there's one other thing that I would suggest configuring, and that's the name of your main branch. Because by default with Git, it's called master, but with GitHub, they changed it from master to main. So you can check what it is by doing -- global, and then it's init.default branch. Okay, and you'll see mine is main because I changed it, but yours might say master. So what you can do to change it to match GitHub's is just add main like that. All right, so now that we have that done, we're going to talk about the project, which doesn't really matter because that's not the focus, but I have a link to a download in the description to this task tracker zip file, which has an index.html, a script.js, and a style CSS. And it's just an example of a project that we're going to use to make changes, commit to our repository, push to GitHub, etc. If you want to use some other files that you create on your own, that's absolutely fine, but I figured I'd just give you something to work with. And the reason that I put it as a download and didn't add it to its own repository for you to clone is I don't want to start with cloning. I want to start as if this were your own project. All right, so just download that. And you can see I'm already in the task tracker folder, and I could do everything from here in my terminal, but I'm going to open this folder up in VS Code so that I can use the terminal here and we can actually see the files, okay? Because there are some Git integrations with VS Code, and even though that's not the focus of this tutorial, the focus is the commands in the terminal, we still have that as like a visual confirmation of what's happening. So just to kind of go over these real quick, very, very simple. I just have an H1 and a UL here. So we have a script.js with just a console log and then a style sheet with a little bit of CSS. So again, what's in here doesn't really matter. So the very first thing you're going to do when you create a project and you want to use Git is you want to initialize a local repository, and you do that with the command git init. Okay, if you remember, if we look at this slide here, we run git init, that will initialize a new repository, and it creates this hidden .git folder, right? So if I were to do an ls, so list my files and show hidden files and folders, it shows this .git. That's my Git repository. If you wanted to completely get rid of it, you could do rm-rf and then .git, and that would completely delete it. All right, so, and you can see that a couple things happened within VS Code. One, it shows my branch name down in the corner, main, and it also changed the colors of the file names and put this U next to it. So this just represents files that are untracked, okay, the U and the green coloring, which means that I haven't added them to my staging area, because remember, there's a staging area, right? And then there's our local repo where we commit to. So we haven't done anything with these files yet, so they're untracked. Now there's also a source control tab here, and you can do everything that you can do within the terminal with Git commands you can do here as well. But this isn't a tutorial on VS Code, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But it does show you which files, are untracked, and it shows you the status. Now to check the status within the terminal, you can do git status, and that shows us that we have 3 untracked files. Okay, so what we would do next, if we look at the workflow here, is we would run git add and add files to the staging area. So typically what you'll do is you'll work on your project, get it to a place where you want to save it essentially, and then you want to run git add, and typically you'll add all, so all your files. But I just want to show you, you can add them individually. So if I do git add index.html, now in VS Code, just to show you as a visual representation, it has an A next to it. It says index added. So this file has been added to the staging area, and if I were to run git status, it shows me that. Okay, so this here, and then these 2 are still untracked. So if I run git add dot, or add all, now they all have an A next to them, and if I run git status, then you can see that they're all now in the staging area to be committed. Now to commit, to commit, we run git commit, and that will commit files to your local repository, not your remote, not GitHub or anything. We haven't set any of that up yet. This is all local. So let's go ahead and run git commit, and what you're going to do is add the -m flag and add a message in quotes. So typically when it's your first one, you'll do something like initial commit. So if we run that, now you can see the files are no longer green over here. They're white with no letter, because now everything's up to date. Everything's added to the local repository. If I run git status, it says nothing to commit, working tree clean, because I've committed everything. Now from here, you have the option of either adding your remote repository with GitHub, so you would need to create one on GitHub, or you could just keep working locally for now. So for instance, if I want to make a change, and I'll just do something silly here, I'll just add another task, right? So now if I save that, you can see that this has changed color now to orange, which means that this file has been changed from what's in the local repository. So you go through, you make some changes, you add a feature, you fix something, whatever it is, and then you're going to add again. So let's just say git add all, which is only going to add the index file because that's all it's been changed, right? So now that gets added. Now you want to commit it. So let's say git commit -m, and I'll just say added new task. Okay, so now that gets added, and now I have my repository up to date. And you can also run git log, which will show you your commits, starting with the most recent first, which is added new task. It shows me the author, the date, and the commit hash. And if I click the down arrow, you can see that it goes to the next one, which is initial commit. And then to get out of this, you just hit Q to quit. So that's going to be your workflow, is you make some changes, you add a new feature, whatever the change might be, you add the files to your staging area, and then you commit them. Okay, and we're not dealing with a remote repository just yet. But as far as frequency goes, it's really up to you. Some people will commit really often, some will only do it after major features. It's really just based on your preference.